and welcome to this week's edition of The Author's Eye with me, your host, Derek M. Cartwright. And today I am joined by the science fiction writer, Sally and Amelia. Say hello, Sally. Yeah.
So hello, yes. I'm really excited actually. I've been working on a new website today.
Woohoo.
Yes, because I'm doing the audiobook competition as part of the Farnham Literary Festival.
Yep.
So I thought I would add some audiobook reviews to the website. Um, the main reason I thought was if I'm going to ask people to submit their books for a competition, they better sort of see what sort of reviews they're going to get. And I also thought it might be helpful to have a little bit of content which I can use to promote the competition
Yeah, absolutely. And
by posting.
is that on your personal website or is that on the Farnham Literary website?
But I've got a new website for the audiobook competition.
Oh, right. Okay.
So
Ooh.
yeah, it's pretty neat. So I've been writing reviews today, and I've done the way of trying to make it easier. So I created a page template,
Right.
and then I've been listening to audiobooks and writing reviews. So I hope to do five. I've got to do quite a few. I think I need to get to about 21 or 25 before I can sort of say it's good.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
send
obviously
us the link and
you
I'll
want to
put
get
it on the
to
bottom of this.
you obviously want to get to hundreds really. You
Yeah.
want to get to hundreds of reviews really, but when you're starting something off, I mean, what do you think? How many reviews, if you were if you were looking at a website, how many reviews would you want to see on it before you said, yes, that's a
What on
valuable
the actual
site?
website itself?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say if you can get even just half a dozen, it would be plenty, plenty
Yes.
to actually just say, yeah, this website is doing what it needs to do effectively.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, are you going to be opening the competition up internationally? Are you going to be charging? Have you gone down that sort of route and finalizing that sort of
Yeah.
approach?
The competition has got, I think it's £25 entry fee
Right.
because audiobooks take a lot longer to review. Because previously I've done flash fiction, and flash fiction, which is only 500 words, you could literally read it in about 5 minutes and
Yeah.
maybe 10 minutes to sort of think about it and assess it. But audiobooks, you have to listen to about 30 minutes before you can really give a
Yeah.
judgment. So it is a bit more commitment of time. So I think for the competition, we have to have an entry fee, which is slightly higher, but I don't think it's particularly high in the great scheme of getting reviews for your books
No,
or
I wouldn't
things
have
for
thought so.
editorial reviews. No,
I
I think
mean,
it should be fine.
and are you looking for people to have done the getting professionals to do the voice overs, or are you happy if people read it themselves?
Quite happy if people read it themselves. But the point about audiobook reviews is that I think from what I've read, that readers really like it if there's a professional production and they get quite snippy about, I could hear the dog in the background
Yeah.
or the audio wasn't very clear, which is one of the reasons why I'm thinking of getting a better microphone for this podcast because I was listening to it last week and I thought, oh, the audio's not very good, is it, actually? But that's all my fault. It's not actually your fault or the machine's fault. It's just that the microphone I have here is not very good.
Well,
But
yeah, I
it's
mean
interesting,
it's
isn't it?
yeah, because
You learn as you go along. Hmm.
I know from with audiobooks it's a very strict criteria about the quality and this and everything else. So there is quite you need the proper mics, you need this, you need soundproofing, you need all that kind of stuff. Whereas obviously on a podcast, it's a little bit more informal and the requirements aren't quite the same. But I think it's just good to know because obviously anyone listening to this who might have a story might be interested in sending it over just to understand what the criteria is. So I think it's useful from that point of view. And
Yep.
we'll definitely add the website address to
Thank you.
the
It's
bottom, the
very good.
top, or wherever those things wherever they appear. Um, cool, excellent. Well, I have this week. I've managed to finish the final edits of my middle grade story, Wolfie and the Thunderstone. So I've had that. I've had it back from the editor for a couple of weeks. From my editor a couple of weeks, and I just haven't quite got round to going through the final stuff. So that's ready now. I'm looking to see if I can find some competitions to send that off to, something a bit different. I don't normally bother with sending stuff off on competitions, but in for a penny, in for a pound, and we'll see
What
how we get
what
on with that.
what
So,
word count is it?
sorry,
What how many words is it?
21,000, I think it is.
Ooh, is that novellas? Novellas
It's
competitions are
novella, but for middle grade, it's about
yeah,
average, So it's yeah, it's
yeah.
not quite. I'm obviously I'm used to writing, 70, 80,000 word sort of novels, so
Mm,
it's a little bit different from that point of view. I I don't know. Part of me sees it as very much this is like I have in my mind, half a dozen stories that will follow on from this because
mm,
if I was writing a novel, this would be the first few chapters, and then you would move it on, sort of thing. But hey, we'll see. I mean, it'll go off, and the professionals will look in and say it's a pile of pants, and we'll move on. Others might turn around and say, "Do you know what? It's pretty good. Let's see what it is." But yeah,
yeah, no, it should be
I don't
good.
know until I try, sort of thing.
No, you don't. No, it's true. Mm.
Anyway, so this week we'll drag it back, kicking and screaming. This week. We're going a little bit of a deep dive. We thought we might have a chat around, with it being your
Yeah,
speciality, science fiction, around how space travel conducts itself in the science fiction world.
yeah.
Um,
No, there is reasoning in my madness here, um, because at the end of Heirs of Empire, which is book 5 of the dodecahedral series, um, the 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 I decided fairly early on that the way they were going to travel between planets, because if you write a space opera, you have to decide fairly early on how you're going to do this.
yeah,
And I decided fairly early on that I would have stargates. Um, and what I decided to do, which was slightly different, I don't think anyone's quite done this before, is I've said, okay, stargates are situated at the edge of a solar system. So it can take quite a long time to get to the Stargate. And so therefore you have something called an accelerator, which is like a very fast travelator, I suppose, that takes you from your planet out to the Stargate. So when you're traveling in the dodecahedral empire, you first of all have to travel from the planet to the Stargate, which invariably takes about 5 to 6 hours. And then you travel through the Stargate, which is faster than light time travel. So you arrive instantaneously without aging at your destination. So, and you also come back instantaneously, and you haven't noticeably aged, nor have the people
yeah. So
on the
if you
planet you
if
left
you're if
behind.
you were on planet Earth and
Yeah.
you've aged the time it's taken to get to the Stargate, and then you go off, and if you're being away for 7 days fighting the enemy or whatever it is that you're doing, and you come back and you get back to Earth, it's only really the time it's taken to get to that on your travelator, but plus the 7 days. So your parents may have thought you've just gone on a holiday for a week, for example,
Yes,
but you
exactly.
could technically have been at the other side of the galaxy.
Yes, and I think what's interesting about this is that the premise of the dodecahedron series is that Earth has recently joined the United Races, which is the galactic confederation that rules their part of the galaxy. Um, but there's a bit of a hiccup in that they didn't. The normal procedure would be for a civilization was that civilization would have to explore their solar system, get right away to the far edges of their solar system and develop a certain level of technology, and then they would find the Stargate, and they would probably find the accelerator at the same time, and then they became members of the galactic United Races, as I call it.
Yeah.
But what happened with Earth is that one of the alien Valvanchi took a particular interest in Earth because what they had discovered was they discovered that there were 13 human planets which had been connected and had been an empire, and they had become disconnected, and they got so involved in trying to research that they unwittingly made their presence known to the humans, and then also revealed how to use the accelerator and how to use the Stargate. So the Earth, the people of Earth, the humans got a bit of a leg up
Yeah.
by an unwitting alien who was, so they didn't have to actually find the Stargate themselves or explore their solar system. They were just suddenly, oh, wow, we got this fantastic new toy. And so they weren't possibly as well prepared as some of the civilizations might have been. Um, so at the end of book 5, there was a problem with the Stargate. So I then had to figure out, okay, well, what sort of problem would a problem with the Stargate be? And why would it stop working? And that's that's why I thought we'd talk about interstellar travel tonight. And I spent quite a lot of time reading physics books recently,
Yeah.
and nearly all of the physics books you read at the moment who say, yeah, interstellar travel is possible, but you need an insane amount of power to do
Yep.
it. Um, and in modern fiction, there are several ways that they get around this. So, for instance, in Star Trek, they have dilithium, I think it's dilithium
Yep.
crystals.
Dilithium crystals. Yeah.
I think in they also have exotic matter.
Yep.
Sometimes have an exotic matter, or you can have Casimir Casimir drive. Now, all of these three refer to well, except for the dilithium crystals, which is just thought up by Star Trek. But the other two, exotic matter and the Casimir drive, these are actual where people have actually worked out the maths and said,
Yeah.
well, actually, what we need is some sort of exotic thing that doesn't exist, which will open and sustain a time wormhole. And then
Yeah.
there's a great deal of debate, as you were saying, about what happens when you go through these wormholes. Whether or not, if you go through and then come back and you think it's just 2 days, whether or not people have aged 500 years in your absence.
Yeah.
But now this has gave me a great deal of reassurance because Carl Sagan, when he wrote Contact, he was writing a fiction novel. And he said, well, for the purpose of my story, I want them to go and come back and for people on Earth to be waiting for them to find out because they're making first contact with aliens. So obviously they want to take the news back to people who are worried about it on the planet. So what he said to physicians was, okay, if I want someone to leave Earth, travel through a wormhole to go meet aliens and then come back, uh, is that possible? Now, not have we got, he said, have a look through all the solutions and see if that's actually possible. So the scientists sort of did the sum backwards. They knew what the answer was. They wanted to be able
Yeah.
to travel, go back there and back again. And the scientists ran the equations sort of back to front and said, actually, it is possible, but you need this huge amount of power that we haven't got at the moment. So let's just assume that that exists. And so Carl Sagan, when he wrote Contact, the interstellar travel in that is scientifically accurate.
Yeah.
It just can't be done right now,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, the theory around the wormhole stroke stargates, which are basic loosely in the same field, where you actually have, because the layman's, that being me, in the space time are like layers, and then if you bend the layers, you can join them together, and that's the wormhole that allows you to cut through space and time. But and that's instantaneous because all you're doing is traveling through that period, you know. And I think, there is the maths supports it, and far greater minds than mine have confirmed that it's doable. yes, the energy is there. It's possible, and there are some people are speculating that that wormholes exist naturally. We just haven't found them, which would come on to the way that you've described your Stargate as something that exists out there. We just haven't found it yet, in
Yep,
essence.
yep, that's right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I mean, I was going through a few things, and um, so just making some notes about the kinds of ways that other authors have um, tackled that particular problem. So, you've got things like, I mean, you've already mentioned faster than light travel. That's a bit of a catch-all that people say, oh, yeah, it's faster than light travel. And of course, current physics says, nah, you can't travel faster than the speed of light. It's not possible. Um, you know, and that's where I think that didn't. I think that's where Star Trek came up with that the warp drive. I think the warp drive was their way of getting faster than light travel.
Yes,
As
and
you mentioned with the dilithium crystals and what was the other one? Matter and antimatter. They would. It was there was the explosion between matter and antimatter gave energy and all that kind of stuff. But the problem that that doesn't address is this time um, difference. Because yes, you can travel faster than light going somewhere, but time is still here. So you've gone 500 light years into to get to Andromeda, or 46 light years to get to Andromeda, and you come back. Well, it's 92 years have elapsed on Earth. There's nothing
yep,
that you can do about that. That's what faster than light travel as an issue with. But in terms of, I think it's interesting because I think like the Star Wars,
yep,
George
they had
Lucas,
light speed. They had
he had
light
light
speed.
speed, but he basically never ever discussed its impact, in terms of the actual physics of it, because I think in many ways he described it more as a space fantasy rather than a science fiction, if that makes any
Uh,
sense. And therefore, as a fantasy, you know, do what you like
yeah,
sort of thing. There isn't that. I think we within science fiction, the science fiction community, I think we like the idea that it's possible, whether it be theoretically possible or not. Obviously, we haven't got, well, not that we're aware of, but we haven't got spaceships flying all around the galaxy. We've not found other life forms, and yet within science
mm.
fiction, that's almost a given, isn't it? So it's okay. So
There
that's
are
faster than light.
there's a couple of other models, both in Ian M. Banks' Culture and in Frank Herbert's Dune. They have a pre-existing network of tunnels, like wormholes
Yeah,
across the galaxy. And in Dune, they have these incredible creatures who can travel through the wormholes, and they can only be controlled telepathically. And then you have this religious sect who become the pilots and who pilot the creatures through the wormholes. And the way that people transport that is they actually they travel in the belly of the beast, so to speak.
right.
Um, and in culture, in M. Banks' Culture, anyone can travel along the byways, provided they've got ships of the right um, magnitude. But ancient civilizations have fought over wormholes. So actually, quite a lot of the stories in Ian M. Banks' cultures come about where wormholes have been broken, or they've been diverted to strange places, or strange things materialize out
Yeah,
of wormhole that no one had expected because no one knew where it's connected to at the other end.
yeah,
Um, so that's so I think that's what the one I'm using in dodecahedral. I'm assuming that some sophisticated civilization has built the wormhole network. And what there are three levels of civilization. I think it's been speculated. Um, there's a civilization level one, two, and three. Now, to put this in perspective, most people agree that Earth in its current form is about civilization zero point 0.7 or zero point 0.8, because what they say is for civilization one, you have to be in control of your solar system
Yeah.
and all the resources
All the
within
energy
your
and
solar
resources.
system.
Yeah.
And normally that would require a single government and a single nation. And obviously, we're a little bit far removed from that. But they say once you've got that together, and then you can bring together all the abilities of an entire planet, then you can master the solar system. And
Yeah.
then from civilized one, you go up to, I think, civilization two
Yeah.
is where you've
Kardashev
started.
scale, I think it is it? Is that what they
Yeah,
call it?
you can then have up to 1,000 planets because by that time you've managed to pull the resources of many, many more planets, and you've managed to put in place a form of stable government that exists over a vast number of solar systems. And that takes you to civilization two. Now, interestingly, in the dodecahedral series, we've got the humans who are civilization one, possibly. As I say, they're probably not ready. But we got the Vavanchi who are civilization two, and the people who build the wormholes when that we don't really come in contact. I don't even speculate about who they are. They would be a civilization three who actually have control over an entire, galactic spacing in the galaxies enough to manipulate it to build wormhole
Yeah.
tunnels. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. Mm.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm doing all this research at the moment just to make sure how much none of this is going to go into the book. I mean, but for me, it's like putting in place the foundations, and then I build a swimming pool, and then I build the diving boards, and then I start diving off the
Yeah.
diving boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
not
because
it's not
well,
about the foundations, it's about what you do.
yeah. I mean, the
Uh,
interesting thing with stuff like stargates and wormholes is that you could also have your baddies, if you like, or you, as the people control access to it, almost like a toll in
yeah,
the old-fashioned kind of toll roads that the old coaches would come along and have to pay, to use that particular road, and that's in essence it's a similar sort of thing. So you could you end up weaving that as part of the narrative of the story. I've got a couple of other things to examples of how authors have dealt with space travel. I think possibly one of the more famous ones is the generational ship. So the idea is that
yeah,
we can't travel faster than light. There are no wormholes. The only way that we're able to go and say get to Alpha Centauri, something like that. So
yes,
those 40 odd light years away is to effectively build a great big ark, a great big ship, and that people live and die and live and die, live out the whole of their lives for however many generations it takes for that ship to get to its destination.
yeah,
So you've got this kind of idea. I mean, and then on the back of that, you've also got things like within that, people will have suspended animation, which is another concept of people, or cryogenically frozen, whatever it is, so that you can, if you wanted the same characters rather than, living and dying, you have the same characters, but you freeze them and then bring them back to life, whenever they arrive. Um, Talking about some of the science, you've now got more recently, you've got things like quantum entanglement, which is a relatively new idea when you get down to how things can exist in different places at the same time. Um, so people call that, I think they call it hyperspace or dimensional travel, so that you can appear, you're here 1 minute and then you flick of a switch, you're over somewhere else, and it could be anywhere else because of this quasi quantum entanglement rules, which is physics way beyond my puny little brain's ability to understand the concept. But I sort of go, okay, if you're telling me that that exists, I'll run with that. And I can therefore, in a science fiction world, I could say, yep, you can exist here and here because of quantum entanglement. Um, oh, the other one is if you want to travel, you could maybe do like an AI or a digitalized kind of consciousness kind of transfer.
yes, yes. That's an
So put
interesting one.
yourself
Yeah,
into a machine
a machine. Mm.
so that you exist, and maybe you can play computer games for the rest of your life. And maybe there are people already who are so plugged in into the matrix that they're already doing it anyway. And that's that one. And then the other one, oh yeah, so um, and then yes, there's another one that I have come across, which is traveling at the speed of thought. Nothing travels
Oh,
faster than the speed of thought.
oh wow. No, I
So
haven't heard that one.
if you can imagine, I mean, talk about how much power or something like that would need, but if you can imagine that you're able to transfer your existence, as it were, just by saying, right, I don't want to be in London anymore. I want to be in Cairo or wherever. And the thought of that, you there automatically. So I think that's quite that. I think that's a good idea. I'm sure people are, if they haven't done it before, I'm sure somebody will come up with a good way of doing it. And then you've got when you were talking, because the other thing that you were talking about was power, wasn't it? And about the power requirements for a lot of these things.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so obviously, I'm sure far more advanced aliens would laugh at our pathetic chemical-based rockets and all the rest of it. Um, and obviously, we have the nuclear option. We've already got. I mean, I think there's talk at the minute about getting a nuclear engines, motors, whatever, to run, and they would be based on obviously fission technology. But what about if we could ever master fusion technology? And then you could have this
Yes, well,
idea of a fusion drive. Yeah.
yeah, they are working on fusion drives, aren't they?
Yeah.
I
So,
think there's
yeah.
places in University of Cambridge where they're working on it. I think they're just underfunded to a huge extent. Keep reading that they're just about to do. They do it in little tiny boxes,
Yeah.
trying to
I
get
think
fusion drives working.
they've got to, yeah, it, because obviously we know it, the thing about a fusion drive is we know it works because the sun is a fusion engine, for want of
Yes,
looking at it. Any star out there it works by fusion. So we know it that physics it works, but that still's not going to get you to travel faster than light. But it is a way. It would be better than obviously a chemical rocket or any other type that we have at the
that,
moment.
that's when you see why planetary wide government would be better than the capitalist
Oh yeah,
competitive or countries have got at the moment. Because, for instance, I remember a few years back, they were talking about fueling cars with water,
yep,
so hydrogen power, and that never came to anything. And the reason why it might have it probably would have been no more dangerous than the current petrol combustion engine. But the reason why it didn't come to anything was because there was no money in it for the oil and gas complex. Whereas the way we've ended up with electric cars is first, they still need electricity, so we still need power stations. And secondly, charging stations are not that different to petrol pumps. And the whole car industry got fairly excited about everyone buying new cars.
yeah,
So the emphasis then went into somehow persuading everyone to go out and buy a new electric car with complete disregard to the environmental cost of buying a new car.
yeah,
And other solutions, sort of like replacing, petrol combustion engines with something else in an existing car, or, developing water power, just completely went by the by.
yeah,
And I think that's often the things with fusion, is because the existing infrastructure around nuclear energy is such that they sort of look at that and say, well, no, we're not going to back that because that's going to put us out of business. And look at all this stuff that we have. And
yeah.
I think, it's so that's where you think you need a competitive environment like which we live in, the competition between nations and competition between industry. There's no one planetary strategy.
No,
Means that we run into problems like this. We end up with a solution that's not necessarily the best solution.
nope, that's it.
But there you go.
That's yeah,
Can we just finish by talking about Wally? Because Wally had the generational ship in it, didn't
yeah,
they?
yeah,
And they kept them happy on sunbeds. It looked like some amazing cruise.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
spent a lot of time watching television. And then when they landed at the planet, they all amazingly lost a lot of weight and learned how to plant stuff.
Yeah.
It was the most charming intergenerational story you've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure there was much in the way of danger, and it was a very cozy kind of vibe, wasn't it? Oh,
Yeah.
it'll all be fabulous when we get there, and this and everything. But yeah,
I
right.
think this
Well,
sold me on generational ships. So I was never really like the idea of being cut, put into a steel can, thrown out into space, and left there for 5 generations.
yeah,
That doesn't really appeal to me.
I have enough trouble
I don't,
getting in a plane, let alone a rocket. But yeah, right. On that bombshell, we're going to leave it there and say thank
so
you very
you
much,
and I,
Sally.
neither of us are going to volunteer for the generational ship then.
No, no, you're all right. Thanks.
You
No,
volunteer to go to Mars, die on Mars.
no, 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 no.
All right.
I'm
All
quite
right.
happy with
Thank
this
you very
planet.
much,
Thank
Mark.
you. Yeah.
You're
All
welcome,
right.
mate.
Take care now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.